Thank you for registering for today's Zoom session, The Lost Art of Negotiation. The South Carolina SBDC is an accredited member of America's SBDC, representing a national network of small business development centers. SBDCs can be found serving their local small business communities across the entire United States and its territories. South Carolina SBDCs are created through a partnership between the U.S. Small Business Administration and our higher education hosts, including Clemson University, the University of South Carolina, Winthrop University, and SC State. Our mission at the SBDC is to advance South Carolina's economic development by helping entrepreneurs grow successful businesses. It is through our partnership with the SBA and our higher education hosts and sponsors that we can fulfill our mission, and we are grateful for this support. The SC SBDC is an extension of your business. By providing customized support and training throughout the life cycle of your business, we help you grow and prosper, which ultimately delivers economic value for the state of South Carolina. We deliver these results by providing the following benefits to our clients: confidential one-on-one business consultation, access to training events designed to build your skills as an entrepreneur, resources, research, and referrals. There are 21 South Carolina SBDC centers across the state, so please visit our website, www.scsbdc.com, to find the center nearest you. Today, the Spartanburg area SBDC is hosting the session. It's my privilege to introduce Katrina Meeks, the SC SBDC Spartanburg area manager and business consultant, who will introduce today's presenter.
Thank you, Andrea. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our speaker today, Douglas Lineberry. Doug is a partner with Burr and Forman and practices in the intellectual property practice group with his firm. Doug's practice areas include litigating intellectual property issues, drafting and prosecuting patents in the area of chemical, pharmaceutical, mechanical, and gaming fields. His duties include rendering opinions and validity analysis, obtaining and defending trademark registrations, as well as advising clients with regards to intellectual property, trade secrets, branding, and marketing issues, along with contractual and other business matters. Doug has written many articles such as Preventing Valuable Trademarks from Being Lost, Change in the Couch, and Employee Paycheck Proper Withholding Can Prevent Employers from Losing, from picking up the tab. They're just among the few that he's written. Doug is a graduate of J.D. Mercer University School of Law and holds 2 degrees from Emory and Henry College, whereby he graduated summa cum laude. Doug belongs to many professional organizations. Among them are Trademark and Copyright Law Association and the American Bar Association and the South Carolina Bar Association and the Greenville Bar Association. Douglas has received many honors and awards for his writings and is licensed to practice in South Carolina. He's also an awesome individual, and I just enjoy sitting and chatting with him because he has some of the most wonderful stories to tell. So I hope that you will enjoy this presentation today. We want you to feel free to ask many questions. Doug just has a plethora of experience and information to share. So please put your questions in the chat. And at the end of the session, Andrea will go through the questions and ask them if they're not addressed by Doug during the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Doug and have you start the presentation. And again, thank you so much for doing this on behalf of the Spartanburg SBDC.
Andrea, thank you so much. That was far too kind. Everybody, before we get going, I notice we have a ton of SBDC folks on here. Alan, I'm talking about you, buddy. I know you're down in Columbia. Janet, I see you too. I don't see Bernita yet. You tell her I'm crying. But I want to tell everybody here who doesn't work for the SBDC that you're involved with a great organization. Now, Full disclosure, I serve on the, Janet just said, hey, Doug, I better get some questions from you, Janet Graham. But full disclosure, I'm on the state board, but I serve on this board because it does a great thing, guys. It helps small businesses. It helps them become big businesses. It helps them to understand the facets of business that a lot of people don't ever consider. Now, today's a new one. A lot of y'all have probably heard me talk about IP, and I'm not going to bore you on that today. I'm going to bore you on negotiation. But what I want us to do is to end today with a good understanding that negotiation should happen. Negotiation is something that I want everybody here to do. The reason I want you to do it is because people don't do it anymore. You know, everybody assumes that, hey, you know, if I get a contract, that's the way it is. That's just how it is. It's written in stone. It came down from the mountain. I've got to accept it. You don't. There are definitely things that probably somebody won't push back on. There are things they will push back on. But I want you guys not to be afraid to ask. And that's really what we're talking about today, everybody, is the concept here, the planning, the tactics for a successful negotiation. Because what I want us to leave with is to understand, hey, negotiations happen all the time, whether it's with your kid, whether it's with a brother and sister, whether it's with your parents. And it can be with your elderly parents, it can be with colleagues. They happen all the time. I want us to understand some strategies for us to go in with, how to pre-plan. I want us to negotiate from strength and to understand when we have weaknesses. Because for us as a negotiator, you know, we can't pretend that we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof when we're not. What we really need to do is to figure out, hey, where am I strong and where am I weak? You know, I want you guys to be kind of like Sun Tzu when we're done, is to know, hey, what are my weaknesses? How do I project those as a strength? How do my strengths and how do I use those to my advantage? That's really what we're going to try to do today. Also, guys, it's all about your business. That's why you're here. You know, with everybody here and with all of your SBDC contacts, the reason that we're here today is to learn how do we make it better? You know, what do we do? Even more importantly, after we've negotiated, after we've come to a compromise, because remember, if you win 100 of the points out of 100, then there's probably something wrong. You know, if somebody didn't push back and you haven't come to a compromise on this, it probably wasn't a negotiation anyway, or we've left too much on the table. But what I'll tell you this, though, is that I want us all to understand that it's about our preparation. You know, good old Abe Lincoln said, if you want me to chop down a tree, give me 6 hours to sharpen it. You give me 6 hours, I'm going to spend the first 4 sharpening that axe. And y'all, that's what we're talking about. You know, we want to plan, and plan some more. And what I do want us to do is to understand that this happens before negotiation. It doesn't happen when we're in that room. It doesn't happen when we're sitting here thinking, what should I have said or what should I have done? What I want us to know is that this negotiation process begins at day 0, maybe even -1. So before we negotiate, let's think of this. And again, this is from the buy-sell perspective, guys. There's tons of negotiation strategies, tons of negotiation situations, but we'll discuss a very general one. But I do want questions. If anybody has a question about this or other topics, let me know. If it's an area outside of my law, I'm going to be quick to tell you that. I'm not a big guesser. I definitely don't want to misinform you on something, but please don't understand that if I tell you I don't know something, I'll be happy to suggest somebody who does. And also some of our SBDC colleagues here probably know as well. But what I want us to understand, guys, is going into this, we research ourselves first. You know, what's our spend? You know, who do we use for suppliers? You know, guess what? You know, can we consolidate this? Maybe make some savings off that? That's a negotiation forethought point. Do we know who we are? What's our purchasing volume? You know, what are past prices? What are current market data? You know, understand where we're at. If we go in uninformed, we're going to leave that negotiation uninformed as well. We need to know about our market. We need to know about supply chains. We need to know about goods and services. You know, guess what? We also need to know about us. And y'all, I cannot overstress that. Know your business. And if you're a new business, I get that that's hard to do, but look at businesses that are analogs to you. Reach out and talk to somebody, because guess what? You don't just have SBDC peers, you've got business peers. You may have a mentor. You know, and if you know somebody who's been where you're at beforehand, what we would like to do is to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm getting ready to talk to a service provider who provides whatever it may be, you know, raw materials, maybe a person service, maybe it's a HR company. But you want to talk to somebody who's been there before and understand what they had to go through and sort of cut some corners, you know, learn what they learned without having to learn it the way they learned it. Also, if you have previous contracts with these other suppliers and you know what their performance is on that, guess what? You have some great points to use now. Because if there's something they do well, hey, by all means, tell them they do it great. But if there are things they can improve, that's a negotiation point. That's also part of the give and take of the negotiation is, hey, there's things you want from me, there's things I want from you. How do we meet in the middle on this? But knowing your past history and knowing your forecasted future will help you negotiate for your business. It's just a good thing to do. And it is that type of foreplanning that leads to a good negotiation. Now, one thing I want to tell everybody else, there is no harm whatsoever in saying no deal and walking away. I don't know if anybody's a Kenny Rogers fan here. He had way too much plastic surgery before the end, but he did have an awesome quote. And he said this, you got to know when just quit. You got to know when the deal's no good. You got to know when this is a situation of, hey, too good to be true, I'm not doing this. Or service provider's really not doing what I need to do. I need to find somebody new to negotiate with. So again, the poker analogy is really, really, really a good one because I don't want you guys to bid against yourselves. We do not want to go into a situation without asking first, what are we going to gain? What are we willing to compromise on? What do we absolutely refuse to accept? When do we walk away? What are the things that I'm just not going to take no matter how much you beg me to do? Think of this too, and this is pre-planning again. How will the other side respond? What are they going to tell us on these things? Where are they going to push back? Where are we going to get points that, hey, we better consider this. We better understand this because this may be very important to the other side and can be a negotiation tactic for us. And again, we've got deal, we've got no deal, and we've got compromise. Those are the three big gambits in any negotiation. Do we have a deal? Do we not have a deal? Have we reached a middle ground between the two of us? That'll help us determine those negotiation deals. Also, guys, do not hit this from a very rigid standpoint. Don't go in saying, I must have $100,212.03, period. Have a range. It's just like if you're having to negotiate for your salary with somebody. Do you go in and tell them the exact number? You don't. What you do is we play poker. We go in and we know, hey, here's what my hand is. Here's what your hand is. I'm looking at these hands right here. We don't have anybody. We got a pair of pocket sevens that's pretty dangerous. But then you start looking at these others, and it depends on what comes down on the flop. And if you don't play, you see, here's the flop. This ace king set's love and life right now. They're the highest set we've got. But, you've got this guy down here thinking he's got a pair of fours. He doesn't know about Nancy right here. That's negotiation, guys. We have to anticipate these things before we move in. But what I want us to do is plan, plan, plan. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you guys, being nice is not weak. I don't care who tells you that. Will Smith had a great song about that. Rap, that was probably, call it 2005, 2006. Please don't confuse being nice with weakness. It is not. Now, I will tell you guys personally, my spirit animal is a rabid honey badger with a toothache. And I love honey badgers. If y'all have never researched a honey badger, check them out. They are awesome. They're also highly, incredibly intelligent. And that's what I want from you guys today. We're going to learn some good honey badger tactics, and we're going to not learn some bad honey badger tactics. The one thing I don't want us to do is the blusterer. I don't want us to be the banging shoe on table, Khrushchev saying we're going to get you all. Guys, that doesn't work in negotiation. Invariably, it will cause that negotiation to fail and for us to have to come back later, or it may cause the other side to be like, no deal. Kenny Rogers walking away. So understand that being nice in negotiation is not a sign of weakness, but being completely volatilely hostile. And again, watch the honey badger videos. You'll know what I'm talking about. You see the honey badger right here getting ready to fight a lion. They do this all the time. It's kind of their fun thing. But I'm telling y'all, I don't want honey badgers out of this. I want us to be negotiators. I want us to think about what our positions are. But also, I want us to watch the other side, guys. Watch for verbal clues. I realize we're on Zoom right now, and you guys are looking at slides. If you do a Zoom presentation with somebody, it's not as good as being in the room. I know we've got video and we've got crystal clear audio today, but being able to read the subtleties of body contact, eye contact, and nodding. Are they leaning toward you to show interest? Are they leaning away from you to show reticence? I need y'all to pay attention to what you can see in a Zoom. Now, if you're in a room with them, you're going to catch on to breathing. You'll be able to catch up to posture in a chair. Are they sitting here swinging back and forth, not paying attention to you? You know, are they completely focused on you? And Lord forbid they don't have a camera on Zoom, then you don't know if they're doing it all. But what I do want us to do is to listen to what they're saying. Now, this honey badger, he's not a big listener. What a honey badger is, he's an aggressive mouther. And he is going to sit here and he's going to tell this lion everything he thinks in honey badgerese. None of you are to speak honey badgerese ever. What I want us to do is to listen. And y'all, this is a huge lost trait. We are a verbal species. All humans on the planet talk. It's how we communicate. And we started doing that when we were tiny. Dad, mama is just the beginning of it. You know, now here we are banding words about, talking about honey badgers, talking about how to take the good and the bad from them. But we never, ever want to fail to listen. And I want you to read between the lines, guys. What are they saying? And sorry, I don't mean lion this way, but lines as in lines of text, lines of statement. What I want us to do is to pay attention to what they're saying to us. Because sometimes we get all keyed up and we're like, I'm going to negotiate and I'm ready and I've planned. But sometimes we fail to listen. A great way to listen. And guys, during law school, we had a negotiation course. And I'm my ex-wife. And I know you're like, oh, you're a horrible negotiator if you had an ex-wife. I think everybody should do 3 things in life. You should have a sibling, you should get a divorce, and you should serve a little time in jail. I think society would be a vastly different place. We all did a little of that. I've done 2 of those. You can guess which ones they are. But what I'll tell you is this. Ask for feedback, because in that negotiation class we had in, because I'm the ex-wife on the team from Mercer, and it was critical that you asked for feedback. Because if you just go in and state, this is me, this is me, this is me, we know nothing about the other side. We're not listening, and we're not hearing the verbal cues, the nonverbal cues. We're not getting message from them. That's what we need. Guess what, though? We got to have a backup plan, because if we're listening and they're not saying what we want to hear, or they're not saying it in the terms that we like, that's why we pick ranges. That's why we have options. That's why there's plan 1, plan 2, and plan 3. We will have different objectives in mind, different acceptable outcomes. We'll start with the one that we're strongest with. We can always fall back to a different position if we think things aren't working. Now, this bottom line, guys, this is something honey badgers are terrible at. They don't haggle. They don't horse trade. They surely don't bargain. They'll never cajole. They won't sweet talk. And Lord forbid you ask them to shine somebody on. This honey badger is all about, I'm honey badger 100% of the time. That's it. But what I want you guys to know is that it's okay to do every bit of this. Negotiation is establishing a rapport with the other side. Let me say that again slow. Negotiation is establishing a rapport with the other side. I want y'all to know that that's why we're here. We want to figure out what's our final goal. You know, what do we want versus what do we need? You're just kind of like the songs all say, and typically you're given what you need, even though that might not be what you want. But rapport, guys, we are not a honey badger. We are going to take the good traits from a honey badger. We're going to preserve our position. We're going to pay attention to that other side, because when you watch the videos of the honey badger guys, they're highly intelligent. They analyze a situation 6 ways from Sunday. They appear to be this brusque little hairy skunk looking troll, but indeed they're a brusque, scary looking little troll that looks like a skunk who's thought things out, who's planned, who has said, hey, you know, now granted, honey badgers aren't the best at compromise. They're kind of an all or none creature, and we're not that way. Again, we're going to take the traits we want. We're not going to take the traits that we don't need. But we have to be willing to compromise, but we got to build that rapport, guys. This is not a gunfight. This is not an all or none. Negotiation is compromise. And guess what? And I can tell you all this from litigation, from mediation, from trying cases. What happens is that both sides approach a tandem that neither one's 100% happy with, but neither one's 100% upset with either. That's the compromise. That's where we want our negotiations to go, is the middle ground of us finding a solution we like and helping the other side get the solution that they're okay with. Now, multiple offers, guys. We just don't go in with one. We're not a honey badger whose only plan is I attack, and I attack again. Our plan is, hey, let's figure out what this other person wants or needs. Can we supply that? Because if we can't, it's okay to walk away. If they don't give us what we need, it's okay to walk away. It is okay to walk away. Now, one thing I do want y'all to do is confidence, and I don't mean arrogance. I'm not saying Khrushchev. I'm not saying shoes on table. I'm not saying honey badger attacking that lion. I just want confidence. You go in, and once you know yourself and you do this homework, guys, this will pretty much self-evolve. And some of us are more confident than others. It's just the nature of being human. But if you know and you do that homework and you do the plan, you're going to be more confident about this position. But one thing I also want you to know, guys, this is not a personal reflection. If you do not arrive at a negotiation point with somebody, this isn't a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on them. It's just the deal didn't go through. Deals don't go through all the time. And if you really, really, really need this deal to go through, then there's somebody else you can talk to. There's always another way to look at it. Also, though, guys, remember I said at the beginning, none of us are 10 feet tall and bulletproof. If we're a small company, then we acknowledge we're a small company. We are not Walmart. We are not Amazon. We are not Verizon. We can't go in and demand and get these huge benefits that they get due to their size. We've got to be more nimble. But also, because we are more nimble and small, we can shift a lot quicker than those behemoths can. So if we need to come up with something new or maybe something esoteric that they're not used to seeing in a deal, we can do that as a small business. But one thing I want y'all to do, guys, practice, 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 practice. It's how you get to Carnegie Hall. It's how you become a good negotiator. You guys see me, I kid y'all not, I was shy as a kid. I don't know, Earl Gregorovich right now just spit out his coffee and is like, there's no way. Seriously, y'all, I was shy. There's still things I'm shy about. But one thing that I have done over the decades is I have practiced. And I am now very comfortable talking to folks because I'll admit what I don't know. That is a weakness. And I'll say, hey, if I don't know it, I'm going to tell you that this is a weakness. Maybe I know somebody who can fix it for you. But I can tell you where I'm strong and I know where my traits lie. And guys, that's what we need to do is self-evaluate. Figure out where we're at. Hemingway, guys, love him. Love him, love him. Great author. Very, very stoic, very minimalist in his writing. When people talk, listen completely. Most people never listen. I think he's dead on. I mean, guys, I deal with clients daily. Our SBDC folks deal with clients daily. You small businesses deal with clients and customers daily. Listen, you would be shocked because I know what it's like. It's a Wednesday afternoon and you're thinking, man, I just kind of want to go home and see my kids, have dinner, watch some TV, Netflix something. And it becomes very easy just to negotiate from our principal stance and fail to listen. But I'll tell you this negotiation secret, guys. Active listening encourages discussion. Go, go nod. We're on the phone with that person that you are just waiting for the phone to get done with. It goes faster if you show them encouragement because you are not listening and they catch you not listening. What's that person do? They always rewind. They go back and they're like, let me tell you again because you weren't listening. I need us to listen and I need us to show that encouragement. What you're saying is. Because when you reiterate what they have said, guys, active listening is very pleasurable to the person speaking. And again, we're not the honey badger. We're not going to scream at somebody constantly. We're going to listen. We want to hear what they're telling us verbally. We want to hear what they're not saying because maybe that's where our negotiation points should open up. I want open-ended questions during a negotiation. This isn't a sermon on the mount. We don't go and yell at somebody until our message is accomplished. We need to have back and forth. This is a tennis match. And what I want us to do is have that tennis ball when it bounces over, to bounce over phrased in what, how, please explain. Would you mind elucidating further on that point? So what we want to do is to maintain open communication via listening, because we'll always find out more that way than talking or preaching. Now, what I want us to know first is an anchoring bias, guys. And this is a little deeper into our negotiation tactics. But the first number that comes out is a powerful influence. Now, we have to understand the psychology of negotiation in order to get good at negotiation. And I want us to understand that, hey, when you make that first offer, you are setting an anchor. You're setting an anchoring point. If you're on the other side, you have to fight what is called anchoring bias because that anchor has been set and it sort of delineates. And I'll tell you in a mediation, this is how it happens a lot. The other side comes out with an offer and they say, hey, Jill McCollum, we're going to offer you $5,000. But you know what? You and Chris Kiefer sit down and you know that case is worth at least $100,000. But man, that's $5,000. You're like, this is some sort of insult to humanity. Why would you do this to me? But here's the thing, and Beth, I see you sneaking around on this. You are not forgotten. But Pat Cameron, what we want to do is to understand that, hey, that first number's out there. And if it's our number, that's awesome because we get them locked into our frame of conversation, but they may try to do away with the anchoring bias. So Seville, what we want to do is to make that offer first if we can. And we want that offer to be from us so that we anchor. If the other side's anchored though, all that does is make us more cognizant of where we're at. Because what we want to do, if you're at 5,000 and we want to be at 100,000, you need to come back and explain why 5,000 is not the way to go here. You need to reassert that, hey, 100,000 is really where we're at. And all of us knowing that they don't really mean 5 and we don't really mean 100, we mean somewhere in between because we don't bid against ourselves. I never want you guys going into a negotiation, and Don Deck, I'm talking specifically to you. I don't want us to ever go into a negotiation without flexibility. If we feel that we have to be inflexible about a certain point, we've not looked at it correctly. We need to digest, we need to sit back, and we need to take a little time and chew on what it is we really want. Because if we ever think something is inflexible, it's indefatigable, there's no way that we can do away with this point, we're underestimating ourselves. We're not really looking at this right. And so, Anne-Marie, what I want us to do, if we are ever hit with being anchored, Sunita, David Guthrie, what I want us to do is to go back and reestablish our own anchor. It's okay. I want you to, again, I want you to haggle. I want you to horse trade. I want you to bargain. I want to cajole and sweet talk and shine on them. Not honey badger traits, but very good traits for negotiation. Now, another thing we want to look at are what are the mindsets? Who are we facing? What is across the table from us? The blusterer. Now, this is the person who tells you it's going to be their way. They don't listen, and that is a huge problem. They are going to do the Sermon on the Mount. They are going to tell you exactly how it's going to be. But you know what? How do you negotiate with that? How do you handle that? Because we're back to psychology, folks. If you want to handle a person who is a blusterer, confront them with the facts of the situation. Know what your output is. Know what your volume is now and reasonably what it's forecast to be. Know what those facts are. Know what their competitors offer. Because guess what? The bluster is kind of like a rainstorm. And after a while, they're done. No rain lasts forever. 40 days, current record. But after that, they're done. The storm has passed. And what we want to do is to stick to our facts. But also, slow the roll. Take breaks. Because that bluster is all about it. They've got that speech in their mind, man. They've got the bullet points and they can see them. And one thing we don't want to do, because a bluster is a lot like a honey badger. It sees that line and all of a sudden it's full honey badger mode. We want to be the calm one. We want to be the not emotional one. We need to understand this is a thunderstorm. It will pass. And then all of a sudden we've got nice water everywhere. Things are back green, sun shining again. Here we are. That's us. We are that calm. And a huge way to do that is to reiterate what they've told you, to listen to the bluster. And again, feel free to slow the roll. If they start going on the dynamic tempo, you take a break, go get a water. It's kind of like that email rule, guys. If you're ever typing an email angry, you don't ever hit send. Beth, what we do, Sherry, hi, see you, Sherry Penninger. What we do is we walk away. And Tequila Baxter, what we're going to do is we're going to walk away and breathe for a little bit. Valerie's and Manny, we're not going to press send. We're going to come back and read that critter one more time because we don't email like honey badgers either. I never want y'all to do that. It is a horrible trait. And once you press send, that undo button, and y'all seen it. Somebody will send something they didn't mean to send, and y'all all know what happens. We go look at the one they didn't want us to look at. Costas, I see you lurking, buddy. You're not getting out of this. But what I want us to know is this, folks, is that we can listen to them actively. We can make them think they won because we heard the message, Rochelle. We heard the message, Madison. And okay, and what really is going on here is that we're going to be able to diffuse that mindset. Let's go to the next one, the negative Nancy. We all know a negative Nancy. Some of us are negative Nancys. They raise a lot of negatives. They really don't come up with many positives. I'll tell you, in lawyer world, we hate baby associates like that because it's really easy to point out problems. Gosh, that's so simple. You can do that all day with minimum effort. But what it is really hard to do is to come in with positives or solutions. That's part of our negotiation tactic. Because for the negative Nancy, guess what? We want to be realistic with them because negative Nancys tend to put on, hey, this isn't a thunderstorm. This is an apocalyptic end times. It's never going to end. Let's hypothesize in that framework of this thunderstorm that you and I, because we're not honey badgers, know that it will end. But the negative Nancy wants to stick into that as being the mindset forever. Guys, we draw them back to reality. They like broad, horrible examples. We like narrow, real life examples. We want to talk again about why we're in this situation. Don't help them. Don't feed the black hole. Bring them back to realistic examples and stick to our negotiation points. Again, our anchoring bias. If we are the ones that first offered, we reasonably justify that offer. We have our points of discussion. We have what we want to Seville to be able to make it come back to our way of thinking. The bureaucrat guys, my least favorite, they're the form over substance type. They really don't like to deviate anything because this is the way. This is how it's done. This is what it is. These are the guys and ladies who get bogged down in these unfortunate situations to where they allow the system to dictate the results. And you've seen our firm motto down here, results matter. They absolutely matter in a negotiation, because what we don't want to do is have the bureaucrat dictate how it's going to be. Here's the thing. Stick to those issues. Stick to those key points. Remember our anchoring bias. And if they launched anchoring bias, remember that we want to counter that back to our anchor. You can make them deviate on the form if you push. A bureaucrat is typically somebody who is shielded from interaction based on the form, based on the way it's been done before. But I want y'all to do your research. We're Abe Lincoln, but sharp axe. We know what their competitors do. We know what we can do. But also show respect for that process. Because remember, the one unforgivable sin to a bureaucrat would be coming in and belittling that process. We don't want to belittle it, because to the bureaucrat, this is all that there is. If you want to deviate from them, tell them how good it is. And tell them, man, I see the wisdom in this. Things like, hey, here we are. Let's see what we can do. Now, we do have a nuclear option. And I want us to understand that the nuclear option should be used only in dire extremities. So Earl, the next time you're negotiating at Publix, I don't want us to go full nuclear. Alan, you too. I don't care how bad the Falcons are. We're never going to hire Brady. It's just not going to happen, baby. It's not going to happen. But what I don't want us to do is to use this nuclear option. Don't go all Karen, because when you do that to a bureaucrat, you've done away with them. They will never be your friend. They may be forced to come back to the table by a higher power, though, and that is a good thing if that happens, because they have now been told, hey, come back. And y'all, I'm not telling you to never do this. I'm just telling you, if you do it with a bureaucrat, understand that you want to go to somebody above them and ask for that person who has power to negotiate. And again, don't tell the bureaucrat, take your daggone way it's done and shove it, because that's not the way to deal with them. You tell them you show respect. But if you get to the point of, hey, Kenny Rogers again, know when this deal isn't working, ask for the higher power. Go to the larger, go beyond the bureaucrat. Remember too, though, that damages that bureaucrat. They will feel somewhat affronted due to it. So you might have to help them preen some feathers later if they're sent back to you. Again, active listening. Tell them you heard what they said, Keith. Tell them that you were listening to them. Matt, tell them, hey, we appreciate this, but just say, hey, I'm here to negotiate. I'm trying to do the best thing I can for my business, because they'll appreciate that, because that's what they're doing from their standpoint. The way it's done is how their business works. Now, the diplomat. What we want to know about the diplomat is that these suckers are a little squirrely. And you're like, well, the last one was a bureaucrat. They sounded pretty bad. The diplomat tries to please everyone by being everything to everybody. And I want y'all to understand that they will use phrases like the market to explain their negotiation basis or to support their anchoring bias. What I want us to do is to know our facts, because the diplomat is loosey-goosey. The diplomat, he or she, will sometimes tell you things that aren't correct, or will try to slant things and say, hey, here's how the market works, when you know that's not how it works. Again, facts are the best response to a diplomat. Same with the bluster, same with the bureaucrat. Facts are anchoring bias where we're at. One thing I will warn you about, if a diplomat sends you a contract, guys, and again, y'all have heard me in other sessions say, hey, read it, get it in writing, and read it. And I'm telling you that now, that is a cardinal principle today. But when you do get it in writing, you carefully review it. Because if we don't, there's going to be a problem. Because trust me, a diplomat may try to rook one in on you. And I don't want that happening to anybody. So know the other side. We now know within a framework of what type of personalities we're probably going to experience. And again, nobody is a pure bureaucrat. Nobody's a pure diplomat. Nobody's a pure blusterer. but they may show extreme tendencies in one of those fields. They may be an amalgam, and if they are, then that's good because there's a little of this and a little of that. But mainly, we stick to our facts. We understand our positions. We understand our fallback positions. For Landry O'Reilly, what we don't want to do is to come in and be inflexible. That will not allow us to negotiate. It simply won't. So, if they appear analytical, heavy on the details, you want to be accurate. You want minimal risk, minimal time on their part. So you don't want to be some drudge. You don't want to come in discombobulated, but you do want to show respect for their processes. And again, that's something that really means a lot to the bureaucrats, the process. Be detail oriented with these folks. When they're heavy and analytical, you need to be correct, because if they think you're not correct, you lose negotiation ability with them. The analytics guys are the ones who are heavy on the details, who appear really analytical. They don't like being pressured for an immediate yes. What you need to do is to show them how you help minimize their risk, how you are detail oriented, how you are correct about your facts. Now, if they appear direct to the point, they're direct straight into it, hey, let's get going. Offer them control, offer them results, offer them autonomy. By that, I mean this. Let them think they won, because that's where we have fallback plans from. Offer them one of your alternatives so that they feel like it was their idea. And you're saying, oh, what you're saying is yada, yada. Active listening, so that you can phrase it so that it sounds like it's their idea, because to the direct, straight to the pointers, that's what is important to them. Figure out what their result is that they want, tie it to yours, and explain how this is the win for them, because that's what these direct folks want, is the win. They want to feel like they're the one making the choices. If the person across from the table of you appears like social, spontaneous, creative, guess what? Affirmation. They love being told, hey, you're right, or I see where you're at, or I see the logic in this. And I'm not saying concede your points, and I'm not saying concede our backup positions. I'm just saying to respect their process and to let them know that you respect the process. Get excited, guys. There's nothing wrong with getting excited. That honey badger, one of the most excitable creatures in nature. That is one of his great things, is he's excitable. Both of them, males, the females, the cubs, they're all excitable. I want y'all to be excited about your business. I want you to use that to get the social, spontaneous, creative types to get excited about their deal. Tell them, hey, tell me your ideas. I want to hear them. I really want to know where you're coming from. What's your input on this deal? What's your input on this position? What's your input on this? How's it helped you? What have you seen? You want to maintain that same energetic air with them. This is totally a honey badger trait, not being hostily aggressive, but being excited, heck, being in the room with them, showing that we're all in this together and that you and I are going to figure out something that's going to be good for everybody, but it's going to be creative and we're going to work together on it. That's what this particular mindset wants. Now, if they come across as the empathetic, good listener who are concerned about fairness type, and again, nobody is ever purely one of these. There are different facets for each. But if they do that, what you want to do is acceptance. You want reassurance, and you also want it to be fair. And I know fair is a word we were told in law school really doesn't mean anything in legalese, and it's true. Reasonable is kind of our fair word. So when you hear an attorney say that, understand that that word is in quotes. Fairness is the same thing in a negotiation, because to the empathetic, good listeners who are concerned about that, they want to know, how is this fair? And you need to address their points by saying, hey, thank you for raising this and discussing it with them. But critically, guys, active listening. For these folks, the empathetic good listener, when they talk, you listen and don't interrupt. Just let them talk until they are done, because they are emphatic. They have their heart in this deal, and they want you to know that. And so we do let them sermon on the mouth. We don't do that. That's one of the honey badger traits we don't want. But we do let these guys appeal to that fairness, because they'll tell you essentially, if you listen, what they'd like to see in this deal. Maybe you don't agree with all those points, but you may agree with some of them, and then you can feed that back with the thank you for raising this, let me support this. But one thing they pay attention to, guys, and this is something that the others don't do nearly as much, they watch how you react to your subordinates and their subordinates. And remember, these are the people who are concerned about fair. They're sort of the emphatic, good listener type. They're taking it in. And if you come in and you're nasty to the person at the desk, and maybe you've got a headache, maybe you've got a toothache, maybe it's been a bad Monday, but guys, you will lose credibility with these folks instantly. And if you don't say thank you when somebody brings you a water, these are the type of person that you will start to lose negotiation trustworthiness with, because they will see you as not fair. They will see you as unfair. They will see you as not someone that they can trust. We don't want that. We want them to think, believe, know that you are fair and that you're trying to help them approach a fair conclusion. Now, again, be yourself. And I know that sounds so dumb, so trite, but nobody develops into a bluster. Nobody develops into a diplomat or a bureaucrat. Nobody becomes the emphatic. We've all got a little of those traits, some of us more than others. And what I want you to do is to be you. And again, practice. Sit down and negotiate. Schedule a time with somebody to say, hey, I want to negotiate this contract with you. Here are the points I think the other side is going to be very critical of, and I want you to raise them against me. But also, I want you guys, if you're a Bruce Lee fan, he was a fantastic martial artist, but also a great philosopher. And one thing he told us was to be like water. He wants you to change those styles, because we are not rigid. We are not locked into one outcome. We are not locked into one way of doing it, because first, we're going to actively listen. I want to hear what this person's style is like. Are they the bureaucrat? Are they emphatic? Are they excited about this? Are they the Khrushchev? Are they the bluster, just banging out? Be understanding of what they are. And again, most people are an amalgam. So you'll learn that the more of this, or maybe they're a little of this with some of that, but you need to be willing to change your style. This is not a play where you come in and say rote lines. This is a live piece performance to where the lines may change. This could be like, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Great show if you've never watched it. But they put these comedians in situations and say, act it out. Guys, that's what a negotiation is. You're in a situation, you got to act it out. But to do that, we need to be like water. We need to understand that we can change our style, and we can be firm, and we can say no, but we're going to be courteous. We're not going to be the honey badger. We're not going to go yelling at that line and honey badger eats. We, Andrea Galhouse, are going to be firm, and we're going to be courteous. Use a conversational tone, guys. Yelling at somebody never helps. Getting heated with somebody never helps. Kind of like sending that email. You feel it coming? Time to go to the bathroom. And I don't care if you just went. Time to go to the bathroom. Time to get a coffee. Time to do something. Break the roll. Slow it down. It helps a lot on the bluster, but it can also help too if you feel yourself being drawn away from your anchoring bias. If you feel that you're starting to lose your focus on what your points are, then we are going to be like, take a break. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with saying, hey, here we are. Let me go get a glass of water. Hey, would you mind something to drink? There are 100 ways to do it. But what I want you to do is use that conversational tone. And again, address their concerns, guys. If you're giving a negative response, if you're saying no, tell them why you're saying no and how you've heard them say what they want. Because that's an active listening trait. If we're just bluster, sermon, we didn't listen to them. We didn't hear what they're not saying. But if we say no, and it's kind of like if you guys have kids, you've probably watched the movie Pirates Band of Misfits. And if you haven't, and you don't have kids, you should watch it because it's awesome. One of the best keys, and I just heard somebody laugh, but one of the best statements in it is the statement, yes, but no. And that's really where we're coming from on these negotiations, is the yes, but no. Now, let me tell you why I'm not going to concede that point for you, and why I hear what you're saying, and why it's good for both of us that I don't do that. That's our phrasing on this. Again, guys, can't be scripted. This is not showing up for a soap opera to tell the lines that day. No plan goes 100%. But I'll tell you one thing, and I do this with trademark examiners all the time. I do it with patent examiners all the time. Ask them how they are. Engage with them. If Katrina's in a room with somebody and she wants to make a point with them, she's not going to go in and tell them me, What she's going to do, Keith, is she's going to say, how are you? What's going on? If they look visibly distraught, ask them what's up. That's okay. This isn't some sort of war game. This isn't some sort of us versus them. Hopefully it's an us plus them. And what I want you to do is to be a normal person like you are to everybody you know. Now, granted, if your base setting is rabid honey badger with a toothache, I want you to be different than that in this situation. But I still want you to be a just normal, good old person. Ask them what's going on. Ask them how they are, because that will handle rapport. Also, offer them something, to the diplomat, to the bureaucrat, their way is the sacrosanct way. to the person who's highly analytical, their way is what they want. So if you want to come to a negotiation point with these guys, offer them something, because that helps build rapport. And offering them something can be you saying, hey, I hear what you're saying. Maybe 100K is too much. I heard your point on XYZ. Let's look at 98. Let's look at 92. Let's look at 87. Let's look at 94. Whatever fits that situation. But again, be water. We don't come in with rope. We don't come in with this is how it's going to be and I'm inflexible, because that's the opposite of water. That's the honey badger's bad trait, is that he and or she is not exactly very good at adapting to situations once they've committed. We are water. We will adapt to it, and we will be good at this. Now, what should you negotiate? Price, discounts. Ask for them, guys. If you don't ask, you'll never know that they're there. Hey, what are the additional costs? Yeah, you're telling me it's X, but what's it going to cost if this happens or if that happens? Negotiate the term, guys. You don't want to be married to these folks forever. We do want some nimbleness in a contract. How long is it? They want 24 months. I'm telling you to haggle it back to a year. Their anchoring point was 24. We want our anchoring point to be 12. Set a new anchor point. Milestones, guys, this is a crucial one. When you're dealing with somebody in an agreement, we do want milestones. We want some way to measure, does this relationship work? Set something and say, hey, if they're a salesperson, or if you're trying to pass so much volume through them, then say, hey, by the first quarter, we need to see X, and have things in your contracts. Because remember, negotiations don't just end at the verbal. They end up in a written document signed by both parties. We want to have ways to make certain that our negotiation is successful, that it is fruitful, and that it continues the way we want it to. Ask about support. If you're working with somebody who's a services provider, do they do it by web? Do they do email? Do they phone? Do they Zoom? Do they chat? How do you work it? What are my hours? Are you 9 to 1, Monday, Wednesday, Friday? And I better hope nothing bad ever happens on Thursday or Wednesday. What's their response time? How quick are they getting back to you? If they say a day, you need to say 6 hours, or you need to say 2 hours. Whatever you want to reset that anchoring bias is, understanding that you can be somewhat fluid with that. Do you have dedicated support staff? Like here at the firm, we've got a help desk that we call, and they are dedicated to Burr. That we have people who specifically work for the firm. They know what attorneys engage with most of the time. And they're very knowledgeable when we call with IT issues or a document issue or something, because they are dedicated to us and they understand our business. That's what you want from your service providers or your vendors. Notice periods, meaning, hey, like if something goes wrong, how long do we have to fix it? Or if you do something wrong, how long do you, the other side, have to fix it? Or how long does that cure period last? You want to negotiate these things. You don't want these items to not be negotiated. Deadlines, guess them, and make sure they work for you. If they say, hey, we'll be back to you in 36 hours, you're like, no way, I need you back in an hour. You don't need an hour, but you're telling them that I've reset the anchoring bias. I want us to be at a much shorter period of time. That brings them in. What's your leverage? Well, guess what? We're never ever going to be locked completely into a deal, but maybe we really do need these folks. And if that is the situation, if we have evaluated it, we've prepared and we planned, and we said, look, there are other people, but I really want this one, you've got less leverage. But you need to know that we have less leverage on that walking away point, but maybe we can go back up and negotiate other things that work better for us, other things in the contract. Because remember, to the bureaucrat guys, when you start negotiating these things, you're in their framework. They're comfortable. They're like, heck yeah, they're talking about the way the system works. They're talking about the way it all goes. This is my kind of person. Now, Anne-Marie, what we do want to know is that any documents that we've got in a situation that we know respond to this other company or deal with them, review them. If you can find out something that they have done with other customers, absolutely. Say, hey, I'm aware that you've done X, Y, Z, or I know in the market that this happens. There you go. Again, anticipate what they want. Again, that's part of your practice. Set somebody down across from you. David Guthrie, when you sit down with Asia Gracie, you say, hey, I need to know, what are you going to push back on? What's important to you that maybe I don't see? And again, always, guys, be water. Have those alternatives in mind. And I'm not saying cave instantly. Set your anchoring point. You never know. Maybe they're willing to come a lot closer to it than you thought they would. But if they're not and they're dug into the sand, use those active listening skills and say, I'm hearing you. What about this? Remember, for the ones who are the analytical type, they want to feel that they made the decision. So you help them with that. Guys, face to face, I don't think in this day and age, when we can actually thank COVID for this, we're in an age now to where it is absolutely, positively, 100% okay, Charlotte, to jump on a Zoom with somebody and see how they react. And I'm not saying do it instantly, no Zoom ambush. I was talking about that earlier with Katrina and Andrea. I've had poor clients brought on the phone in the middle of working on a car, and because one of their colleagues just kind of hit them with FaceTime, they didn't realize what was going on. Don't do that to somebody, but absolutely have a face-to-face with them. Have the ability to see them, to see how they react, listen to them, see what points they're emphatic about. Again, we're a verbal communicated species, and it's really tough with a mask on to see what somebody's saying. So that's why if you're going to do a face-to-face, social distance, make certain that you've got plenty of abilities to pick up what they're saying with you, because if we don't see that, we might miss something. Now, packaging items in a group, you can say, hey, I'll give you this term, you give me this feedback period, I'll give you this notice period, you'll give me this service guarantee. There are ways that you can package things. And I don't want you to think that you negotiate each point independently. Important points you absolutely can, but it's okay to say, hey, let's package these as a done deal. Because to like the bureaucrat, that shows them that you're the ultimate believer in their system, because you're trying to say, hey, let's just make this work in this framework. Here's the framework you've discussed. How about these counterpoints to it? But still with the idea that it's their framework that's being looked at and appreciated and respected. Now, let's look at an actual example employment agreement. What do we want to negotiate? Obviously, how much we're paid. That's key item number one. But let's not forget that that's just one item of many. What can they terminate you for? Is it at will? If they show up and are in a bad mood, you're gone. And what if you do have a contract term with them? How long does it last? We're talking a year, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years? Totally negotiable. Your performance indicators, just like those milestones we talked about, what do they need to see from you to show that you're doing their job? And guys, you can suggest this. They may come out and suggest it too. Remember, that's their anchoring bias. They're saying, hey, I need you to have a sales quota of X within 2 quarters. You come back and say, I hear you, and I see why you're saying that, but given the market responsibilities, I'm thinking we should look at Y over 3 quarters. So you can come back and haggle on that. Business expenses, are they paying them? Are you completely responsible for them? What's the reimbursement policy? Are you getting health insurance out of this? Do they have a retirement plan? Do they have paid leave? How does it work? Are you a part-time employee? Are you an independent contractor? Are you full-time? You want to negotiate these things so that they fit you. And you can also, guys, using the horse trade. If you want more compensation, then be willing to give a little bit on paid leave. If you want a contract of employment with them, understand that might lower compensation, or it might lower, work status may be full-time. Maybe they don't give expenses to full-time employees who do certain roles. So understand these, aren't an exclusive list, but these can all be offset against each other to help you negotiate a better deal. Let's look at another one. We've got a license agreement. I don't know, everybody who has a small business, you guys have some sort of supplier agreement. You've got some agreement with them to say, hey, what's going on? Or if you're looking at trademarks or copyrights or property from someone, what's our license say? Or if you're dealing with maybe somebody who's providing you materials to use on a website from their company, are we exclusive? Are we not exclusive? Exclusive costs more, not exclusive costs less. Are we limited to a certain market, a certain vertical? Is this, we can only do this in medical devices, or the person we're negotiating with, they can only provide this in the food service industry. Does it being exclusive limit the business's growth? And if it does, use that to counterpoint other things. Maybe the amount due in the deal, maybe time periods, etc. We want to be water. We want to be flexible. We want to be able to understand that, hey, none of these are written in stone, and they're all malleable as much as we need them to be. Because what we really want to do is to be able to say, hey, this compensation or the royalties, or the term or termination, these risks, all of these can be offset against each other. They can be played against the other side so that they know that we're in a negotiation. Now, guys, our follow-up. What happens when we've analyzed these folks, when we have listened to Valerie? What we do here is we put it in writing. I'm going to say this real slow. Put it in writing. Guys, I had a lawsuit that lasted a little over 2 years from 2 best friends who were involved with a car dealership. They loved each other at the beginning of it. They couldn't stand being in a room with each other at the end of it. They did not have a writing, and it was a disaster. Handshakes do not count. It does confirm that you understand each other. If you've got a diplomat on the other side who might try to get language touchy with you, read it. If you see terms in there that you didn't agree to, negotiate them. Same thing. They've set an anchoring point, you set an opposite one. Meet somewhere. If it's not in there, it's not in there. You put it in there. Again, I'm going to say that one again. It sounds like Dr. Seuss. If it's not in there, it's not in there. So if you don't see it in the contract, it's not in the contract. And if it should be in there, you put it in there. Negotiate, haggle, horse trade. Be firm, protect yourself. Bad tactics, guys. Everything is not a deal breaker. Everything is negotiable. Everything makes us water. If you get caught bluffing to somebody, especially like the analytic mindsets or the bureaucrat, that's a bad thing. You're going to kill your credibility. It's going to make them much less reasonable to negotiate with. It will make them trust you less. Not listening, I should have put this in big, bold red letters. If you're not listening, you're not negotiating. That's just terrible. If you are not actively listening, giving them feedback, showing that you're in the conversation, that is terrible. You're there to talk. You're the honey badger with all the bad traits. You're not the honey badger we want you to be. Do not negotiate against yourself. If the conversation stops, don't any of you dare jump into it. Charlotte, talking to you. Lydia, I'm talking to you. If that conversation stops, you steeple your fingers and you think of something Zen, or you think of, Pirates Band of Misfits. Why was that guy hiding a dodo in his beard? Now, y'all got to watch the movie to see what I'm talking about. But you do not jump into that silence. If you make an offer, you wait for them to respond. Don't you dare bid against yourself. Don't you dare. You make an offer and you wait, because you are water and you are patient. Now, again, huge bag tactic, just having a single outcome in mind. Nimble, be water, have fallback positions. Know that we're going to start high, maybe end up in the middle. That's where we want this to be. We do not start at the number that we desire as our ultimate fallback position, because we tell them this is my final offer and that's the deal. People tell me that, and that just makes me sharpen my teeth, because guess what? My spirit animal is a honey badger with a toothache that's rabid. I don't want y'all to be that way unless it behooves you to be. Now we're at the question point, guys. I will stop sharing the screen so that we can actually start answering questions. So feel free to ask, guys. I'm looking at it. If anybody has a question, please post it. And y'all have been so kind to listen to me prattle.
Doug, thank you so much for leading us through this exercise. I, for one, cannot wait to practice my new negotiation skills with my family and my coworkers. So look out, guys. I'm coming at you, but not as a honey badger.
So thank you, Andrea.
So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the questions here in the chat today. And just as a reminder, negotiation is a compromise, but how, Douglas, does bartering for services work into a negotiation plan?
Absolutely, y'all. What do they offer? What are their services? If they're a supplier and you need them to deliver widgets to you by X, then negotiate with them. Say, hey, they're like, we can't get you 100. Well, take 80, but take 80 faster. Or if you need more than they're willing to do, take it over a longer time. We have to understand that all of these factors are in play, guys. There is no rock solid adamantium wall. This is all water. Be Bruce Lee. And I'm not saying break fists with your hands. And I'm not saying fight a guy who has no hand. I'm saying you need to be nimble, because all of these things are negotiable, guys. Throwing a contract at somebody is the oldest rook in the game. Sunita, we would never fall for that. Poor Sunita's like, oh gosh, he's talking to me. Yes, I am. But if somebody throws a contract at us, we're going to negotiate it. We're not going to take it as is. That's crazy talk. Now, Alan Brown, I see what you're doing. I'm reading back your question in here. Why has it been said to never make the first offer? That's never been said. If somebody's telling you that, they're not negotiating properly, because you know what? Sometimes you need to be water. Sometimes you do need to be the first person. And remember, Alan, there's a benefit to setting that anchoring bias, because if you have a good position and you know where you're at and you've researched this market, make that first offer. Make that out of a position of strength, because you know where they're at. Because when you set that anchoring bias, they've got to start backtracking. They've got to be the one backing away from it and then reasonably explaining to you why. So again, don't be afraid. But what I don't want us to do is to make an offer and then immediately undermine it. Honey Badger don't do that. Honey Badger makes that first offer and he'll circle. Y'all got to watch his videos, y'all. They're incredible creatures. But they think and they analyze. And when they make that offer, they don't go full Honey Badger and attack that line. They're waiting to see what the line does next. And all of us are going to get very patient. And all of us are going to sit there. And if they don't get back to us, we just smile and look at them. They develop a cherub smile. I'm telling everybody to do that. I smile with them and just that, I'm here and you're here and it's awesome. And we're having a good time. Develop that trait. Let's see. Isaiah says, I made that mistake today. My dear, we make mistakes all the time. The great thing is we'll learn from it because we don't learn from success. I hate to tell you that. Failure is the best teacher we'll ever have as people. Success is easy. Failure is not. Failure leads to success. But making a mistake, Asia, we all make mistakes. That is fine. Here's a good one from Seville. How can you have expressed concerns without being seen as the negative Nancy? Seville, that's beautiful. What you tell them is, hey, I don't want to be the negative Nancy. I'm not trying to be negative here, but what I do want us to do is to address this. This to me is a concern and address it in sort of the horse trade way. Say, hey, you mentioned a minute ago that one of your company's concerns was X. One of my concerns is Y. Let's talk about those two. And maybe you play them off against each other, set up an anchoring bias, and reel them in toward your number. So again, you express those concerns by grabbing the bull by the horns. I mean, look, I don't want to be the negative Nancy, but bring up one of their concerns and one of their points that they like. You negotiate with them. You be nice. You be civil. I love it. Do the same negotiation rules apply when renegotiating? Obviously not. Become a full rabid honey badger. Yes, they always apply. Renegotiations are fun because you already have done some of the homework. You've dealt with them once. But it's the exact same thing. And maybe you were the honey badger the first time. Maybe you were the bad honey badger. Now you're going to be the smart one. You're going to circle and you know what went on before. You might know what some of their problems were. You may know the things that you want them to fix and be able to come back and use that as the negotiation point. And again, like Alan said, it's okay. We can make that first offer. We just don't want to undermine that offer. So do we want to negotiate down from it? Sure, because we probably told them $100 trillion billion. But what we want to do is to understand we do not undermine our position and we are nimble. We do have the ability to give and take on issues. If we do not have that, we don't. LaShonda Peoples, I saw you yesterday wanting to know if you can have slides. Of course you can, but I do think that Katrina and Andrea will want you to complete an evaluation of this first. So same deal we had with Tony yesterday. If you guys will give feedback to them on this, you can absolutely have my slides. There's spelling errors. I use the word ain't like 6,000 times, so have fun with it. And if somebody calls you on it, just say, I listen to this idiot attorney all day on Wednesday. He's crazy. Beautifully done. Sunita, thank you. But really what I want y'all to do is to take this and work with it. Here's Katrina saying, absolutely, we're going to send that out. We will. You guys will get every one of these slides. Chris Kiefer, that is awesome. I'm glad you think this. But what I want y'all to do is use this. I want you guys to freaking go out and do this. I want you guys to be out there saying, hey, I'm the good parts of the honey badger. I know what the bad parts are, and now I can use that to figure out a better deal from you. Use it to negotiate first time. Use it to renegotiate the 1,000th time. Do it. Andrea Riley, I'm looking for a small brick and mortar and would like to know the different types of leases, specifically a triple net. Ha, Andrea, I got you, girl. They ratted you out early on. But no, I'm glad on this. Katrina set this up because I think this is a beautiful thing. This is a great negotiation point, ladies and gentlemen, because Andrea wants to know what a triple net is. And Andrea, I'm trying to get off my own slides, which is proving chaotic. But y'all, what a triple net lease is, just so we can bring everybody into the game with us, is the situation to where the person leasing the building, in this case, Andrea, who wants brick and mortar, says, hey, Mr. Owner, hey, Mr. Landlord, I'm willing to take on more responsibility. I'm willing to pay the taxes on this critter. I'm willing to give building insurance. I'm willing to pay for the maintenance. But, and Andrea, here's where we're at on this triple net. You're going to negotiate, my dear, because if you're going to take on all that responsibility, Alan Brown says the other side's got to give up on the price they're asking or their terms or maybe whatever their breaches are. But what we want to know is in this triple net, you, the lessee, are taking on a lot more responsibility than you typically would. And that's got to be offset from the landlord, either by reduction in price, better terms, extended payment plan, however you want to phrase it, my dear. Now, What happens if I leave a lease early? That's a great question. There's going to be, and this lease isn't in writing, guys. We're never going to enter into a lease that's not in writing. You're going to negotiate what happens. You're going to negotiate, hey, do I have to give these guys 60 days notice? If I do, is there a penalty for this? That, Andrea, is not, and see, that right there is an example of asking the right question. Because if you ask that question before you negotiate, you've mastered negotiation. Because you've thought, hey, yeah, maybe I want an escape clause on this. Maybe I want to be able to give 60 days notice and get out of here. Maybe I'm okay with paying some sort of early termination penalty that I'm going to propose. I'm going to anchor back. That is sheer negotiation, Andrea. So what I want you to do is, on that triple net, you freaking go and say, I'm giving you XYZ. You've got to give me ABC, because it's negotiation. Listen to the fears, because if that tenant or the landlord's willing to enter that with a tenant, there's things that they don't want to have to deal with. You ease that burden, Andrea, and all of a sudden, here you are, misreasonable. Misnegotiator, misgetting it done. Good follow-up reading. Anything by Zig Ziglar? Absolutely. Zig Ziglar is awesome. I'll also tell you all Thomas Sowell. He is a great economist. He is a great human being, guys. Thomas Sowell is smarter than most of us will ever hope to be. Great economist. And he has some really critical lines on negotiation. I want y'all to pick up a Zig Ziglar book. Get it online. You can get them for nothing. Same thing for Thomas's book. Pick up one of his economic texts. He is an awesome person. He is a great negotiator, and he can teach you the basics of a negotiation in an economic standpoint. But y'all, that's where we're at. Feel free to ask any other questions. I'm here for the next couple minutes.
Thank you so much, Douglas. We really, really appreciate all the knowledge that you've shared with us today. And as Douglas mentioned, we'll send out a survey. We'd love for you to complete the survey, and then we will be sending out the presentation to you afterwards. So I really, really want to thank everybody for coming and attending the webinar. I know we're a little over time, but I just want to say again, thank you so much, Douglas, for sharing your knowledge with us, and we do appreciate it. And want everybody attending to have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katrina. You guys have fun. See everybody. Be safe.
Bye-bye.